Hey, welcome to the Joinery Business Podcast. My name's Bruce, as you know, and I'm going to be your host today. So this year we've got a new focus, a little bit of a new direction, but it's an old direction. And it's a direction that the industry really needs to go in with a little bit more speed. Today we're talking about the transition that our industry, specifically people in this industry, probably you, need to make in order to create a long-term successful, viable business. You know, the business that you said you wanted when you first started your business, that one that would make you more profit and give you some time, and all those things that were in your head when you started a business that you wanted, that you may not be quite achieving yet. And look, this isn't about saying that you're doing things horribly. You've probably done a lot of things right. And this is the thing that the transition a lot of business owners need to make. We realize that what got you here is great because you're still here and your business is going. But what got you here is not going to get you to where you want to go. So our industry as a whole has a bit of a journey to go on to take on board manufacturing thinking, because we manufacture joinery. That's what we do as a living. We have tradesmen and craftsmen that work somewhere in our business. That's true. But we also have a lot of people that are process workers, or very basic skilled people. They actually are more of the people in our business than the one or two skilled craftsmen that we have. So our journey today and our conversation today is about talking, how do we get the thinking away from craftsman thinking? Because craftsmanship was an era, and that era is long gone. The craftsmanship era ended a long time ago. We now need to think about manufacturing, because if you actually want a business that's gonna not feel like it's a weight on your shoulders every day of your life, if you actually want that, we've got to think about systems and processes and people and how they're gonna function within the business. We need to have a conversation around how do we get manufacturing efficiencies into your business that has great craftspeople in it and makes beautiful product. How do we get that happening? What I'm doing today is I'm having a conversation with two people. The first person I'm talking to is one of our longstanding clients. His name is Leroy Reading. Leroy has been running a very highly skilled craftsmanship sort of business for a long time, builds really beautiful furniture, and he's a highly skilled craftsman himself. He's been on a journey with us for a while to move his thinking out of how do I just make furniture and how do I make stuff and sell it, into how do I actually make a successful business while I'm doing that. So that journey has been a really, I would almost call it a cathartic experience for Leroy, because it's given him all those things that he didn't have before, but he knew he wanted. Hopefully you'll enjoy this little conversation I had with Leroy. Roll the clip. We have Leroy Reading from Reading Furniture and Joinery on the call here today, and we're talking about the shift or the change, the transition that craftspeople need to make from being a craftsman, which Leroy, as you know, I mean, you're one of the people in our membership that are what we would consider highly skilled craftsmen.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the background that I sort of had, coming into the industry.
Yeah, so your skills are high, right? You can make beautiful stuff. The challenge is how do you transition that into business success? And so I'd love to hear a little bit around, what you're seeing right now as new things, maybe stuff that you hadn't expected. Like what's a little bit unexpected? Because if you go back to that time when you were making beautiful furniture and you've got a wonderful story around the bed that you made for your daughter and you wanted to translate that into, a business, you obviously had a really great story going on in your head about what this is going to become. From that time where that story was really dominating and driving your actions to right now where the transition has been, let's say, not as easy as maybe you thought it would be or as liked it would be. What are the challenges that you faced along the way that you've actually had to learn and take on yourself?
Yeah, look, I think I had it very much romanticized that this furniture was going to turn into a business, and it was going to sort of create momentum, and off I'd go, and it was much harder than that, and not having so much of a business background, but having that sort of, it was really more of an artist mentality. Yeah. And what I learned very quickly is that the phrase starving artist,
there's a lot of them in the world, isn't there?
Well, there's a lot of truth in that statement. That's not what I wanted, because it wasn't going to give me the freedom to actually be able to express myself, through artwork or craft anyway, because I was always under so much financial pressure that it stifled the creativity. Yeah. So whereas I thought that it was going to be this great artistic endeavor, it really just became a burden very, very quickly.
I love having you on because you're one of the, I don't want to paint a broad brush over the industry, but a lot of people in our industry will say, well, I'm not good with computers. I'm not good with that tech stuff because I'm good on the tools. You're actually good in both areas. You're really good with the tech side of things, and you're actually good in the craft side of things. So as far as the advanced manufacturing and the technical side of things, what are some of the, like if you were to have someone in front of you right now that was like a Leroy was 5 years ago, what would be the tech advancements that you would put in front of them and get them going on it right now?
Well, I'd kick back on that a little bit and say that I'm not really a tech savvy person, but I'm not afraid to try, and I'm not afraid to go in that direction. Even if it's a struggle, I know that it will pay off down the line.
Well, that makes you in this industry, that makes you an aberration, because a lot of people won't even do that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You're not a tech expert. I get it. I call it.
And it's very uncomfortable. But I, through dogged determination, I throw myself into these things, and I do think that I'm open to anything anyone else has to offer. And I think that's like one of the advantages of being around you and your team, is that it opens you up to lots of different ideas, and as long as you're willing to take them on board, it's a big advantage, and you can run with things you probably wouldn't have thought of.
And you've also, and as evidence to that, I would absolutely fully support what you're saying, because you have gone from, like when we first met, you were working with Mosaic and trying to price your work, and then we got into using Mosaic to price your work, which was good. And now you've gone on to Jobman, using Jobman to sort of run all the, so that advancement that you've taken, that's evidence of the steps you've been prepared to take, right?
Yeah, and I've been really focused on systemizing things, getting procedures in place, getting documentation, and moving further and further away from that fly by the seat of my pants artist mentality, because it just was never going to give me a repeatable outcome.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to, get all these systems and processes in place that give me these repeatable outcomes. And then the business is able to move forward from there. I'm not there yet, but the trajectory is where I want it to go.
It is a moving target, isn't it? You never get to.
Yeah. And every time you make an improvement, there's another improvement, which is, one of the most exciting things about business in general, I think.
Yeah.
Is that it's not something that you do for a little bit and then, hey, everything's perfect and away we go. Yeah. Like, it's an evolving beast, and you've got to keep evolving with it. And I think there's exciting times ahead.
I've got a favor to ask you, Leroy. At the Joinery Coach, one of our challenges is to speak to the broader industry, because as you know, we work with a very small segment. We've got 55 people in our main program out of 45,000 here in Australia that we could be potentially working with. And the broader industry, who are craftsmen, people that are very, very proud of their skill and the skills that they've achieved over time. When we start talking about moving from craftsman to manufacturing, they get very defensive very quickly. What language would you use to those sorts of people to get them out of that mindset and help them not be afraid of losing their craftsmanship skills?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people in our industry act like we're, like there's trade secrets and but really, like, nobody's doing anything wildly different to anybody else. Yeah. And competition, there's going to be plenty of bad business owners or people that aren't willing to change. So I don't think competition is as big a deal as people think it is either. Like, I'm just a big believer in the rising tide, elevates all the boats. And so the more you give, the more you get. Yeah. Like, we should be open to discussing, like, in the furniture sort of world, everyone is so willing to share a technique, discuss ways of doing things, what works, what doesn't work, try this. And it's a really inclusive community. And joinery is very different. It's a very closed off, and people aren't as willing to share. And I think that's a real detriment to everybody in the industry, because at the end of the day, we're making mostly white boxes. Or colored boxes, but there are better ways of doing things. There are more efficient ways. There are sort of smarter ways, and as long as you're open to hearing new things, like, it can be really exciting to take on those. So you've
gone on a bit of a journey, right? Because I would say now you're more focused on the manufacturing focus, I guess. Would you say that you've lost any of the craftsman side of your business? Was any of the craftsmanship skills at risk by you taking on manufacturing processes and systems?
No, not at all. It really, if we can be more profitable, it opens up opportunities for injecting more craftsmanship. Because if you can be in a position to, not have to maximize every minute, I think it opens up creativity and thought process. And if you're not sort of being held down by the weight of the financial pressure of running, like, manufacturing in our industry, like, I think it's a simple business, and it's also very complex at the same time. So yeah, you can really get sort of bogged down, and the freedom comes from having things in place to be able to hand off to people, so you're not bogged down in the mundane anymore.
Yeah.
And you can grow your team, hand off those things, and the only way you can do that is with a system or a process to be able to hand off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you handing off to someone? You can't keep it all in your head.
It's so true, isn't it? Like our big kick right now is getting our industry and the industry as a whole to embrace manufacturing and manufacturing systems and processes and get out of craftsmanship, because craftsmanship was an era. It's not a strategy, right? It's an era that's long gone. It's not even relevant anymore as far as how you run a business. And it's always fascinating to us when we see somebody who takes it on fully, like you've said, be open to listening, but actually that's not really good enough, is it? Because everybody kind of listens. It's be open to doing.
Yeah, you got to be able to take it on board and also be willing to fail.
Well, I was just going to mention that not everything you did has worked perfectly, has it?
No, not at all. And then, like in the failing, that's where the growth comes. You don't want to fail too much.
You got to be succeeding sometime, right?
Yeah, you got to kick some goals. Probably need to kick more goals, but you can't be afraid to venture forth and try something new.
What's your go-to hand tool, Leroy? Like I've got some favorite planes of mine. Shifting gears into something completely sideways here a little bit. You probably got a whole series of beautiful tools that you use. What's your, when you know what I mean? When you put it in your hand, you go, oh, this is really cool.
Got a little block plane that was handmade by a maker in the US, and it is a beautiful thing, and it fits perfectly in my hand. And every time I use it, I get a little bit excited.
I'll get you to take a little picture and send that to us. We'll include that in the clip. I've got a little blunt nose plane, and it's only about this big. And when you're chamfering an edge or something and you just want to do just a little bit of something, I pick this thing up and it's just, for some reason, it's just razor sharp. I don't know, it must be something in the metal on the blade, but it just sings, when you hear that, it just sings like, oh, this is so good. But then again, when the CNC is doing its job, that's good to hear too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when we're making money.
Yes. Money's in the sawdust, isn't it? Cool. All right, Leroy, thanks for this. This has been very helpful, and I'm sure other people listening to it are going to take it on board. And would you say a statement like "get over yourself" would be a good one for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think we take ourselves a little bit too seriously, I think, and sharing is good.
And nothing good happens
help thy neighbor.
Yeah, nothing new happens in the comfort zone, does it? You got to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and there are definitely having connections in the industry is such a valuable thing, to be able to go and see somebody else's workshop, see how their factory works, see their flow, and just be able to have those really in-depth conversations is just invaluable.
I agree.
So take advantage.
I agree.
Reach out.
Beautiful. Thanks, Leroy. Love your work, and thanks for your input.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right, so hopefully you've really enjoyed that conversation with Leroy. He's a great guy, and he's really committed to his own future. You can see what happens with people when they're really committed to achieving something. Nothing stands in their way. They just keep pushing past all the things that are stopping them to get to where they want to be. And Leroy's a really good example of that. My next conversation that I'm having is with one of our coaches, in fact, our highly skilled senior coach, Nigel Newman, who is the lead of our manufacturing excellence program in the Joinery Coach. Nigel's a very, very interesting individual because he's worked in highly advanced manufacturing environments, Boeing, all kinds of really, really high-end, large manufacturing environments. And he's now really enjoying the challenge of working with smaller businesses. But part of the challenge is, how do we take what works in larger, more advanced manufacturing businesses, and how do we take that same methodology and same thinking and make it work in the joinery and cabinet manufacturing industry? Now, the good news is we have a high degree of success doing this. We've got a system in place and we make it work. So this conversation with Nigel is around some of the challenges and some of the things to think about. So it'll help you transition from craftsmanship thinking, hands-on thinking as a business owner, into how do you make your business successful and how do you make it a really successful manufacturing business with some craftsmanship involved in it, with some rudimentary processes. What are the keys? Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation with Nigel. Roll the clip. You and I have talked a lot about industries that have gone from the craftsmanship era, where everything was kind of done by hand, into more advanced manufacturing, that transition. What are you seeing now that you've gone into hundreds of cabinet businesses and talked to all kinds of joiners and cabinet makers? What are you seeing right now as the one of the barriers or the struggles that this industry is still struggling with to make that transition from hands-on crafts to more advanced?
Well, I certainly, having been to lots of cabinet shops now and been in the business, of coaching this particular industry for 3 or 4 years, you can clearly see the ones that move forward quickly and adopt new ideas or new concepts, and ones that kind of struggle to let go of the old way. So it is his mindset, right? It's a lot to do with mindset. And I think, it's no one's fault, because we go into an industry, and anybody who's in a trade, you select your trade, you normally typically the journey, and this was what my journey was like anyway, not really into sitting down and studying books all day long, but hey, I love the wood shop, I love the metal shop, awesome, have fun in those, right? And I love sport. So I wanted to be highly activity driven. But the problem with when you go through like an apprenticeship, there's this, I believe there's this kind of expectation that I'm going to do 4 years and then I'm qualified, I'm off and running, I'm going, right? I'm done with learning. But the reality is, if you go then into, let's say a person goes for an apprenticeship, has 10 years good work experience, and they go, I want to start a business, I'm pretty good at this, I'll start the business. What you're really doing is taking that same knowledge you had 5-10 years ago and then trying to run a business with it. And there's a huge potential gap or problem with that, because running a business is not just building furniture or building
a whole different set of skills.
It's a whole different set of skills. And more importantly, even if you are just thinking about the manufacturing, we talk about flow all the time, right? So understanding how to make flow happen is nothing to do with craftsman skills, unfortunately. You can make awesome things, but without the concept of flow, they tend to pile up. And that's the opposite of flow. We're not getting paid on time, things are sitting around too long, hiding defects in a pile somewhere, and we don't discover that too late. So completely different. It's almost like that thing, when you're doing personal coaching around leadership, growth mindset and fixed mindset.
Yes.
It's kind of the same thing. We could actually probably do a little graphic of what's the fixed mindset in cabinet making industry.
Yes.
In fact, any trade industry, where you kind of think you're done once you finish that learning phase.
Well, that really is what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset.
Yes.
That's.
But I guess it's more specific than personal growth. It's more like, well, how do I learn business growth?
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of the hurdles are actually just mental blockages. Oh, that won't work here.
Yeah.
We're too small for that. All these kind of things build up a mindset that becomes very defensive to change.
Do you think a lot of people think it's going to be more difficult to keep learning things and implementing all the time? Do you think a lot of people see it as being more difficult than just do the same thing every day and you'll be fine for the next 30 years?
I think that's what they tell themselves, but I think the reality is it's just discomfort.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about our job is to make you a little bit uncomfortable, because if we're not doing that, we're not really getting you to think differently about why are the problems happening in the business I'm frustrated with, why are they continually happening, right? So we need to get people out of their comfort zone. But that's what we do when we give them a 90-day plan or the next stepping stones to walk on. And then and we're not expecting people to suddenly go from one mindset to another just because you give them a plan. No, that's not the expectation. But the way I look at it is like, you're learning something new. You're learning to follow a plan. You're learning to document certain things and record certain things. That is a new skill. So we're not expecting you to nail it in the first 90 days. Yes, you're going to drop things off, but that's why you need the coaching, the ongoing coaching to, okay, what stopped you? Why did you decide to do that instead of the thing you're supposed to do? Because a lot of coaching, whether it's personal or business, is that. You wrote a plan, the plan's good, looks great. If we do that, we should have a fairly stable week, and at least we've covered all the right things. We're going to get out of reaction mode. But the reality is, if you're not used to following the plan, you're going to fall off it, right? And that's the coaches to bring you back on it and go, hey, remember, let's try again.
In our industry, we don't generally work with people that we're ever going to go down the academia sort of path, right? Which is fine. People are so inundated with social media. All kinds of people saying, you need a plan, you need to do this, and join my program and I'll tell you what to do, and I'll map out this thing, and you just go and do it and you'll be fine, right? There's all that stuff everywhere, and we're being completely pummeled with all these people telling people what to do. And the fact is, you can tell people what to do all day long, but they've listened to people telling them what to do. They're not doing it. So there's a thing missing between knowing what to do. With a lot of our clients, they kind of know what they need to do. So I guess what I'm asking is, what are some of the techniques that we do differently for our audience, cabinet makers, joiners, people that own businesses that are used to being on the tools, that helps them make that transition out of rudimentary type business operations into more advanced thinking? What are the techniques that they really need?
So, there's a saying from a movie, I won't say which movie, it's like, we can show you the door, but, you have to walk through it. And you won't realize you've actually gone through the door till you get to the other side. So it's a bit about, we have to give people simple experiences. Just follow this, do this for an hour, 2 to 2 hours. But it has to be doing something, creating the ideal work week and then following it, or creating a small 5S project, or setting up a visual board and starting to put the information.
Action, real action.
Actual actions. If you're not doing an action, you're actually learning. Think about it that way, right? Because as you say, everyone's been telling you what to do, so you get inundated with stuff. And then we kind of we either flatline because it's overwhelmed, or we flatline because we're not sure how to do it, or it seems too big.
Yeah.
The step is too big. So, we intentionally cut our learning modules down into smaller bite-sized things where you can do something for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and then stand back and actually see something's different. Boards up with all the information for the week. All right, awesome. Couldn't see that before. That area now is labels, and everything's easy to organize and put back, and everything should be in arm's reach and easy to get. Didn't look like that before.
Yeah.
So, it's like I realized my coach was doing this to me many, many years ago when she was leading me to an experience that was going to help change my mindset about something, but she wasn't telling me anything. She was thinking, why don't you go try that? Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, right. And then I come back and talk about it, and I go, that's right. Yeah,
that's what happened.
That's not what I thought was going to happen. So it's often, people's resistance or not doing the things they know they need to do is just this kind of assumption that it's kind of like a narrative that runs in our brain that it's not going to work. It's not, all these excuses come up, all these hurdles, I call them. So our job is to kind of make that hurdle really small, so I can just step over it, not think I've got to climb over it. And after every hurdle, stop and have a chat about, okay, what did you think before you were going to do it? Oh, it's going to be hard. It's going to be too difficult. Now you've done it. What do you think? Oh yeah, well, it wasn't hard. It was quite easy. There is a change. All right, now we've got a bit more momentum going into the next thing and a bit more belief, self-belief.
I think it's so important, the action, because I believe that a lot of people that we work with, when we start talking about more advanced business processes, they probably automatically think some sophisticated computer program or a sophisticated system that they're going to have to interact with. And there's this ongoing conversation about this magic computer screen, or the automated board that's going to be up in the factory, right?
Yeah.
I remember back in the late 2000s when we were looking at computer screens. So the screen went up on the wall, and what happened was everybody stopped work and stared at the screen. It was like there was a soap opera on television. So that didn't work. So then we had individual screens at workstations, which tend to make a little bit more sense. I think there is this misconception that this computer, this central brain of the business, is going to put something on this screen and magically transform the business. And it just doesn't work that way, does it? You've still got to have this interaction, this physical interaction with something.
Yeah, I mean, screens are displays, right? They're not physically asking anybody to interact with them. So it's a display. And, we talk about visual display versus visual management, right? So visual display is not managing anything. It's just sharing some information with you. So it's like a FYI, hey, this is happening. Good example of it might be, sharing the defects for the month. It's a display, cool, everyone's going to look at it, and they're either going to be concerned or not concerned. Am I in the data? Did I make some of those, all those natural questions will arise. It hasn't done anything. Hasn't actually had a physical effect in the business until you take that data, have a meaningful discussion around it, which is tactile and interactive, and then actually come up with some idea generation. It's just going to stay a display and have very little value.
Yes.
And a lot of people, they collect the defects, put them into a chart, and they kind of go, what do we do now? They kind of get stuck with the rest of the process, right? Or even worse, they just continue fixing defects the way they used to. Like, we've got to fix everything on the screen and not using the Pareto rule.
It's not the one thing.
Narrow it down, right? So I see the problem with the screen and the computer is, I think Bill Gates said this once, it might be a popular name at the moment, but he said, don't automate anything until you fully understand it, because you're just going to make, if it's a bad process, you're just going to make that bad process run faster. So if you do defect tracking, put it into a computer screen, but still using the same mindset you did before, it's not going to have the effect, the intention. But if you change, okay, what's the process to actually take all that data, narrow it down and work on the critical few through, and then review how that's going. Are those corrective actions or fixes actually working? So keep measuring, right? A lot of people think it's kind of like a P&L, like, just got to create the data, great, got a snapshot. We know what's going on.
And we're seeing the worst case scenarios now in AI, right? We're asking AI to do things for us. And we didn't really know what good would look like when it's done, or how it was supposed to be done. And then AI does it for us, and we go, I think that looks okay. Let's send it out.
How do we know, right?
But it's all crap.
How do we know?
But at least if you know what you want done, and you get AI to help you, and you know when it's not good and you can tweak and adjust it. Now you've got something.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people stuck. Like we've got a very large industry. Here in Australia, there's something like, 50,000 potential businesses we could be working with. We're working with 50 or 60 of them. And so there's so many potential businesses that could benefit from shifting their mindset into a growth mindset and moving into more manufacturing thinking. What do you think the messages are that we need to get across to them? Like if you think about comparisons to other industries that have already done this, what in your experience do you think was the cut through, the breakthrough for them?
Well, unfortunately, in other industries, it was kind of like what happens. In fact, we're in the same position actually. Let's be honest. When a certain part of the industry moves forward, like becomes the arrowhead, the pointy tip to change. This isn't even like comparing this industry to the automotive or the aircraft or the train. Because when they went through it, the technology of AI and other things wasn't on the precipice of happening. So there wasn't this big question mark about what's this going to do to industry. So I think we've got a different challenge in a way. So if you're on that pointy end of the people that are pushing this industry to a new direction, which is, hey, we want our suppliers to drop ship rainbow packs. We want, everyone else has done this. They partner with the supply chain to make their operation leaner and flow better, and the supply chain starts to react because they start to offer those services. I went through this with the paint industry in many sectors where we wanted 2-day supply in the paint with nothing else.
Right.
As opposed to a big tin cabinet full of paint, with months and months of old, PPG and other, they started to adapt because, they're international. So this isn't news to them. And they knew that the industry is going to move that way. It's not something you can ignore because someone else offers that service. You've lost that client straight away. So we're on that edge now. We've got clients that have been asking rainbow pack servicing and initially said, they won't do that for us. They'll charge us the earth. I only wanted $30, $40 extra more, and they're providing that for us now. And next day delivery. I've got a few clients in Victoria that are getting that service. So, and what we know in the other industries, the more people start to ask this, the quicker the change starts to happen. Right. My point being is that the way I think, the advice we give to people is this is going to happen sooner rather than later because AI is going to push that to be more rapid, I think. So, you look at the automotive, it was 10 to 20 years before all the automotives are now operating the same way. You couldn't survive as a outlier in that automotive field if you weren't doing all the things that lean manufacturing and best practice kind of guide you to. You just wouldn't exist. So
you'd be a charity.
Take that to our industry. So maybe 5 years now, not 10 or 20, because of the advent of technology. So in 5 years' time, potentially, there's going to be a filtering of those industries that weren't adaptive enough to take and start looking at this stuff now. My advice to people listening in, if you wait too long, trying to catch up with the herd that's moved forward or the point
you're too far
is next to impossible. Even if you do it, it's going to be hugely expensive because now you're under 6 months, 12 months to survive, right? You can do it, but why be the last to join? Why not start looking at that now and, start to implement those changes as the industry moves towards that, because now you've got more likelihood to call your supplier and he's going to do those things for you because he's not heard this before. Other people are asking.
So the elephant in the room question that nobody really seems to want to address, everybody just shuts it down and doesn't want to talk about. We've got robotics, we've got AI, we've got technology. It's not knocking on our door. It's here. It's here now.
You buy one tomorrow.
So we know that in other industries, we've got robotic systems doing really delicate work. Do you think it's completely unreasonable to think that in a year, 2 years, we're going to have robots assembling kitchen cabinets better than humans can do it?
Well, certainly, if we don't ask, we won't get. It's that simple rule of the universe. You don't know until you ask, you don't get. So, the advice I've been giving to people around robotics, there are a couple of people asking about that, would be to, there's robotic manufacturers here in Australia that you can contact and they'll send a technical salesperson to your shop. And because no one in this industry is an expert in that yet. And even when I was hearing about these robots 10, 15 years ago in industries that are much, more advanced, even they didn't know how the application, how do we apply this to something? They actually went and bought 3 or 4 and then they sat in the R&D team for 6 months while they worked out which process can actually work on. We don't have that problem today because the companies that are making this have seen so many applications that they'll come to your site, they'll do a walkthrough and they'll actually spot processes. They go, this is something you could potentially automate. So don't think that this is anything more than a conversation you need to have. They'll also give you advice on what you might need to change in your process to get the robots to be able to work. But I would say within the next 5 years, you would definitely start to see robots in mid-sized to small businesses doing sanding, doing
Well,
paint prep,
that's already a thing. Sanding.
putting in. If you had a way to repeatably locate things, yes, absolutely, you can put screws in, things like this. So there are many applications, and say until you ask, you don't really know what's possible.
Yeah.
But also, what's happening is that whole field is going through advances itself, right? Right now, the hardest thing is to get someone to replicate fingertip touch.
Yeah.
So being able to take a small screw and start the thread. But they'll be too expensive at the moment, but that's now been solved.
Yeah.
They have a tactile robot that can touch and feel, can actually do it buttons on a shirt, which I say is apparently very challenging.
Well, that's what I mean. We're seeing this.
So in 5 years, that'll be affordable,
Yeah.
and that'll be an attachment to the robot, and then you'll be able to grab a screwdriver, put things in, all that kind of stuff. So again, start looking at those things now,
Right.
because it might be a 2 to 3 year implementation.
So the craftsman who now is physically doing a lot of work, some craftsmanship work, some basic rudimentary work, the craftsman, that person is going to graduate to still doing some of the stuff the craftsman needs to do, like the veneers and the stuff that's still going to, I think, my feeling is we're a long way off having AI do the craftsman stuff that's true craftsman now.
Yeah, look,
that person needs to be comfortable going into accepting that automation and being the driver of it and the leader of it, do you think?
I think you need to understand it, right? Especially for the craftsman, because then you can kind of go, well, what other things could we teach the robot to do? And not be the person that's holding on to those. There will always be a level of complexity that robots are just it's going to be too expensive to automate those kind of things, or the frequency is not going to be there, So there will definitely always be a need for a highly skilled person within a shop for those particular things. But also, now we need someone to be able to teach the robot. That's not necessarily coding. It's not I think mechatronics is the university degree you take if you can do that. Because a lot of the robots are being designed to be used by an operator, by someone without robotic skills. So grabbing the head, teaching it, like start here, do this, apply this much pressure, and the robot can be taught that way. So there's the robotics companies are definitely constantly looking, how do we get the robot into the industry without the hurdle of high level knowledge to run, without high level of maintenance, all the things that typically people think about robotic lines or robotic applications, they're trying to desperately solve that.
Yeah.
So basically, I think their end game is you'd have a robot in your garage helping you do your car service, whatever the things is you do today in your garage. No one services the car really anymore, but you get what I'm saying. They want these things on scale, right? To be available to help you with many, many things. So they're constantly trying to solve that problem. So again, having a chat with an integrator or someone from that industry to go, well, these are the processes I have. How easy would it be to automate these things?
And I think the industry itself, I think one of our messages, or certainly one of my messages, is it's time to wake up. Because
Absolutely.
If we just sit back and listen to what industry is saying, I can't find good people, my business is struggling, I haven't got profit, we're not getting work out on time. I was reading a thread the other day where someone said, I can't get people who are willing to do overtime. So that means that, this generation just doesn't want to do overtime. Why would you want to do overtime?
That's right. Yeah.
Like who
it's a problem, right? It's
what business owner would legitimately say, my team should want to do overtime?
That's right.
That itself doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, we have to embrace the solution rather than, resist it. And I think technology has been advancing steadily over time, whether we like it or not. Our industry has not.
Yeah.
And this is the gap that I talk about quite a bit. The gap is getting wider because technology is advancing at a way faster rate than it ever was before. So technology is getting past our reach unless we as an industry wake up and say, okay, I'm going to embrace this and say, it's okay if I have a robot assembling square boxes.
Yeah.
That was never a trade skill in the first place. It was just a basic rudimentary process.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset I think we have to get people to embrace. That if you want to have a successful business and you don't want to struggle with finding good people all the time and not making enough profit and defect and all that sort of stuff, technology is the thing you need to embrace.
And if you think about it, we've kind of been through one of these, thresholds already with the CNC, right? Because
absolutely.
I mean, 25 years ago, you would have seen very few CNCs in wood shops. 25, 30 years ago.
That's true.
Yeah, like around 1990.
Point to points were the thing, and often part cut from a panel saw to a point to point, or a beam saw and a point to point.
And I know we still have people in the industry today that still are thinking about buying a CNC, their first CNC, right? They're still, and that's typically what I've seen is it seems to be more the timber specialists. Maybe because the CNC is not, set up to do that kind of work initially. If I go back 25 years, we've already been through one automation implementation and got over that hurdle fairly well. I mean, most people today would be thinking to set up a joinery business with the CNC in it as a standard, right? Yeah. As opposed to the panel saw and the beam saw and things like that they used to be set up on. So, we can do it. We've shown the industry can do it, but we've got to get more agile at this stuff. We've got to get the next change in, which is typically, for me, what I see is the next thing the industry lacks on general is having a system within the business that, whether it's Jobman, Monday, getting a system. And that's one thing most of our clients, when they first join, are lacking: a comprehensive system, one truth, one voice in the business. And then once you've got your information like kind of automated, because that's what that does, you're not lost anything, you become efficient in the office, you can create really good like quality gates throughout your system. I think once we're through that hurdle, I think that's kind of where the industry is now. Yep, we need systemization in our information. Then I think now you're talking about, well, how do I connect my factory together so I can actually understand everything's going in my factory? And that then would be not necessarily robotics automatically, but certainly a higher level of understanding how the factory's running.
Yeah, and you naturally go back to manufacturing thinking, which includes, you can't have a system with having advanced system or somewhat advanced system thinking in the first place.
Yeah.
Because two people buy a system thinking it's going to be a problem, but the system doesn't do anything unless you know what to tell it, right?
That's right.
So again, we come back to our industry, who is primarily all the craftspeople and thinking in a craftsmanship way.
Yeah.
Need to go into system thinking or manufacturing thinking.
Yeah.
And again, we've talked about this a lot, where it's not their fault. They were taught as a tradesman.
That's right.
They were never taught manufacturing as part of the trade. It was, how do you build your craft?
I think for me, the biggest difference in the way the industries have gone through this kind of, graduation, if you like, into technology and future-proofing the businesses is, if you compare it to like large industry, like cars, planes, boats, well, those are all owned by kind of typically corporations. There's no one in the garage. No one's running a starting business. I'm going to start a car company in my garage.
Yeah.
So that the corporation has the advantage of the leverage of the knowledge of that industry coming through. And the decision making about future proofing itself. Whereas an independent business owner can kind of ignore all that if they want for a long period of time, until the guy down the road is smashing them, and they go, he's got a robot and he's got CNC in there. What's happening? I better react. So I guess it's what I worry about is the thinning of the herd concept, that when those things kick in, if you are late to the game, that you're really going to find it hard to compete at that point.
It's a horrible thing to talk about, because we are talking about businesses going out of business.
Yeah.
But that thinning of the herd over time traditionally has been a good thing for an industry, because what emerges from that is stronger business.
Yeah, it's strength.
So it is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's happening right now.
Yeah. And which side? Where do you want to land?
Exactly.
That's a personal choice. Because maybe you're thinking, you're going to sell the business the next couple of years. Maybe there's not a reason to invest and put all that money and time and effort into future proofing. But if you want to be here in 5 years, 10 years. Now's the time to act. You have to join
this conversation.
Now's the time to act. You can no longer not happening. Ignore it. You have to actually make a commitment.
Because you're right. Once, say, the nesting technology came from the point-to-point CNC machine, that new technology advanced the industry for a good 10 or 15 years. So much so that we didn't need to look at what's next.
We kind of plateaued again. Yeah. We had this big leap up. We go, plateau.
And now we're going, okay, what now? Yeah. What's next? Because we still have struggling businesses.
That's right.
That certainly didn't solve anything.
Yeah.
Well, Nigel, thanks. I always enjoy having these conversations with you on deeper topics. Thanks for sitting down in our new podcast room and having a chat.
It's been very nice and relaxing with a bit of the wood feel in here. It's been very, very cool to have a chat.
Yeah, and I love the mid-century modern.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
All right, so hopefully that conversation with Nigel gives you a little bit of something to think about. It's a really, really good sit-down conversation with Nigel. We have those conversations quite often. I just love sharing our little wins and our little insights with you. The next step really is, if you're ready to think about the next transition step, what are the first things to do? But the first thing is to be prepared and be willing to take those next steps. Let me be super clear before we wrap up this podcast. Manufacturing thinking, or systems thinking, is in the brain first. It's a shift, it's a habit shift. A lot of businesses are in habits that hold them back. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change some habits and get you out of the comfort zone. Look, we know that in the comfort zone, it's comfortable, it's easy. The things you've been doing all these years are easy to keep doing. That provides certainty. Certainty means that if you keep doing what you're doing, you're certainly gonna get what you've always got. So it really isn't about the fact that you need certainty. What you need is to be able to work in an uncertain environment that you've never been in before. So a lot of what we do here at the Joinery Coach is we teach you how to work in an area that you're uncertain about or is new to you to get new results that you've never had before. Hopefully this podcast has been of interest to you, and if you like what we're doing, please jump onto our YouTube channel if you haven't already and subscribe, because the more subscribers we get, the wider the word goes out and the more we can help the industry as a whole. And if you'd like to carry on this conversation any further, please jump onto our website, book a call. There's probably a link below somewhere in this conversation. More than happy to have a conversation with you. All right, Bruce from the Joinery Business Podcast. Hopefully you have an amazing day. Peace out.